my view on it is like with racist. If you don't like them because they're racist, don't watch their content. It's that simple. Let people make
Right?
their own decisions about it. Don't go advocating on Twitter saying, "Oh, don't watch this guy's content because he's a racist."
I
Just
mean,
don't watch their content.
I will say I'm actually okay with that too. I think
Okay.
if you don't like someone because they're racist and you don't think that people should be watching them, well, I
By
do
the way,
think
I mean this is important because someone's going to take this out of context. I mean with their opinions. I don't mean obviously through action.
well, yeah, I know. I already knew that.
No, I know, I know.
I'm saying like I think that it is okay ultimately for people to exercise their free speech in whatever way they want, even if I think it's stupid.
No, I agree.
This
It's just a moral question, right?
yeah, okay. But I mean, I think morals should ultimately only serve to protect people's rights. If people's rights are protected, then morals are I don't know, kind of secondary. Cuz like I feel like if everyone has their rights and all those rights are protected, then morality's job is done. What is and isn't moral is whatever infringes on the least amount of people's rights. And when I say least amount of people, I'm not talking about utilitarianism. Fucking commies watching this video who probably aren't. I'm talking about the most amount of people, like, as in everyone involved.
So this is where I disagree with you guys, because I'm not getting where you guys are differing from actions and thoughts. Because then I was with you until I brought up. Oh, fuck. I was with you till KYKA brought up YouTube. Like, if you don't like the content because they're being racist, don't watch it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't.
But that is an action. So
No.
I think they should making a video of you being of them being racist is an action.
No,
That is an action.
I feel like it's a little different. So what I mean by action and opinion is like, if you go out into the public and just say the N word to black people, that is action you're taking to be racist. But if you just have thoughts about,
Is it?
yeah, I do think that
I
is
feel like
an
that's
action.
more of speech, which is the intersection.
Speech is an action, though. Speech is an action. That's why you have to differ. What are the thoughts for you guys, and what is action? That's where we need to differ.
I think.
Yeah, go for it, Chao.
I was gonna say that I think that speech is ultimately a gray area, where thoughts and actions intersect, because it essentially is the act of thinking out loud. So it is thought and action, and so it should be treated as both, not just one or the other. I do think that ultimately, when it comes to speaking, which this includes slurs, and don't worry, we'll get to that later in the episode as well. I think that the act of speech must be protected because the freedom of speech it's not even just a constitutional right, it is a human right. It's something you are born with and something that can never be taken away, only infringed upon by authoritarians. And that ultimately the consequences, sort of the accountability of that speech, can only be doled out on a personal level, not on an institutional level. Does that make sense?
Not really. Because
yeah, go for it.
Because let's say someone goes to the street, as KYKA said, and like screams at African Americans.
Yeah.
And says like racial slurs like the N word, the hard R, with very aggressive and hatred behind that.
Uh-huh.
Are you trying to say that they are not allowed to take action towards that person for accountability?
What do you mean action? That's the question. If you mean
like assault.
Are they allowed to respond or assault? Yeah.
Because I think that response should always be allowed. I think that assault is generally uncalled for.
Uncalled for.
Well, sorry, I'm using the wrong terminology. It's worse. It is a violation of the right to life. So
how is it? It's not them taking life. It's just them kicking their ass because they are literally using the words to point hatred at them.
The difference between hurting someone and killing someone, while the difference is, that the person still survives after the first one, it's very hard to, in the moment, sort of delve out how much force is going to hurt someone versus how much force is going to severely injure or kill someone. And the difference is essentially just how good in shape they are, and that's just such a specific situation where it can't really be, considered as a general rule of thumb. It has to be a case-by-case thing.
Well, then the same can be said about words. Because words can also hurt people.
No,
We cannot deny that.
No, yes, we can.
No, yes, they can. You can be very much harmed more emotionally and mentally than you will be physically.
Well, I think that point, just suck it up. This is how I view it. You don't have the right to assault someone if they said something mean to you, even if that's a slur.
Even if it's a racial slur that's very
because
hatred-wise.
words are not actions.
Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
Words can hurt you, though.
No, you.
Words can hurt
you.
you.
Yes, they can hurt you, but not physically.
Okay, and also a punch can also not hurt you.
Look.
A punch cannot also not hurt you. No.
A punch.
No, because a punch cannot hurt you.
A punch is an action of physical damage.
There's a problem with this rabbit hole, because this opens a can of worms with, okay, we're going to the point where if any word offends you, to any point, you have the right to respond with physical action.
Exactly.
That is a bad road to take.
What your road is taking is much worse than what I'm taking, because you're saying that you can just go onto the street and say racial slurs and cannot be hurt or any.
But you can.
Actions.
That's a right you have. You can do that right now. You know that, right?
That's the first.
Actually, you can't. That's hate speech. You would be going to jail.
No, you can't.
So you're saying
if it's hate speech,
you support hate speech?
To a degree, yes. To a degree.
You made it sound really bad, Chao. You made it sound like he supports hate speech.
Well, no. I'm saying like you support hate speech laws. That is anti-constitutional, my guy.
Constitutions are meant to be changed. This is the founding fathers viewed it. Constitutions are meant to be, changed throughout time. It's our groundwork, but there are other layers.
Look, you could say the N-word in public if you're a white guy, and nothing will happen to your First Amendment right. Because I'm sorry. If any court decides to prosecute you on the basis that you said hate speech, that state will be sued. That is you are violating the Constitution, and the Constitution is the law of the land. That is basic law. If you want to go out on the street and call a black person the N-word when you're white, that is your right.
You're saying that they should do that?
No, I'm just saying.
So, no, that's what you guys are saying. Because you guys are saying that you should do it. Yes, you are.
And can are different.
Sonny, okay, look. Sonny, look, Sonny, listen to me. I'm saying that if we do not allow certain speech to be said because it might offend people, that opens a slippery.
It's not might. It is. It will. If you go to somewhere like Compton, you will get shot if you said that to a person, especially with hatred behind it.
Sure.
Yeah, that's
it's not true. Yes.
That is murder. Okay.
That's not okay just because they said something like bad, just because they were asking for it. That's
can you imagine
murder.
Chao, Sonny, can you imagine, and by the way, you have very strong views on abortion, right?
Yes.
And gender identity. Can you imagine if you went to a trans person and said there are only two genders? Can you imagine the type of response that would be elicited from them? They would say you're saying hate speech, and to them, your speech offends them. By your token, they have the right to beat you up. Do you understand what you're saying?
You understand what you're saying is to use...
I'm just saying we're all at a level playing field.
Right.
It's either some speech offends us, and it always constantly changes, and we never know what speech is offensive and what could get you in jail, or all speech is speech and should be treated as speech. There's only two ways you could go about this, and I like the latter because I think it's more consistent in how it can be applied.
And it respects everyone's rights.
In the law, if you antagonize someone to a fight...
Look,
antagonize? Define.
Threatening... before we go into that, because I understand what he's saying. Threatening is different. Alright, you could be put in jail for making threats, and obviously, threats are only used with speech. But I'm not threatening anyone if, by the way, I would never do this.
By calling him a dirty N-word, you would not be threatening them?
Yes.
How am I threatening them?
How is that
Explain.
a threat?
Because you're basically using
A threat is a promise of action.
Yeah.
So let's look at
You could look at the
definition.
definition, sure.
Oh my god, okay.
Okay. Because
It's very clear. Because
what I'm getting from this, I'm pretty sure some viewers are getting from this, is that you are advising people.
no,
Just because
I'm not
they have
advising
their
people.
First Amendment right, they can go out to the street and say whatever they want.
If they want to do that, sure. I don't advise it, but they can if they want.
But they can. They have a right to.
And by the way, I respect that right, because if they don't have that right, that means I don't have the right to go out in public and tell a trans person there are only two genders.
It's a double-edged sword. It has to be.
Yeah. Either everyone gets offended, or none of us get offended.
Because-
That's the basis.
Because ultimately, right, if we're going to assume that hate speech is a reasonable thing, who gets to decide what is and isn't hateful? Because I'll give you a hint. It won't be you.
Yeah, that is true.
Well, how else are things deliberated and chosen? Like laws and stuff like that in
By
the Constitution.
democracy, by the
Exactly,
citizens of
so
the
we
republic?
could just vote on it. It would
No,
be
you
the same
can't.
thing.
Oh my.
You
Why can't we?
Because to change, well, you actually wouldn't change. You actually wouldn't vote for anything. Okay, you know who would vote for? The states.
Right.
Okay, you would have to have some type of convention or some type of vote called upon by states, presumably by governors, to decide whether the First Amendment should be repealed.
I'm sorry.
You don't decide anything.
Like, okay, consider the ramifications of this. We all live in California, okay? Spoilers, we're doxing us. We all live in California, okay?
Yes.
Imagine if the people who run fucking California were able to directly control what words you can and can't say. How is that the good future?
I mean, it saves quite a bit of, people, lives and such as that.
No, it doesn't.
It's for your protection. It's not much,
So
Like I said,
safety
I
over freedom,
believe...
bruh.
I don't want to be protected, man. I just want to be left alone, and I want to live my life.
Thank
I don't
you.
care if someone says anything offensive to me. They
You're
have
saying
that
we
right.
should... To
Literally
go off
safety
safety
over
versus freedom. So, you think you should have the right to kill someone without any consequence?
What?
I'm not saying that.
That's safety for freedom.
No.
I mean,
No,
freedom
I'm
for
just
safety.
saying
Safety
I want you to
over
leave
freedom.
me alone.
Oh my god, okay.
I don't need anyone to protect me
The
because you
exception-
think certain words will hurt me.
The exception of safety over freedom is when the freedom encroaches on other people's freedom, like murder or assault or rape. These are
Yes.
all things.
So you're saying that
encroach on
someone
people's
should not be
freedoms.
offended just because it's a word. They should just suck it up, as you said earlier.
Yeah,
I
think
Have
so.
any of you
Yeah?
have any of you been called any derogatory language before?
Oh sure.
Towards you,
Yeah.
racial,
You've done it.
towards your
You've
racial.
done it. You've done it.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
Would you want me to be getting the law involved with you? I'd never do it, by the way.
The
Would you
difference
want me
is
to be like getting you involved with a legal issue because I considered it to be hate speech, and the law of California would almost obviously agree that I'm gonna like blur it out. I'll blur this out, but is a slur because you've called me that before. Don't act like you haven't.
the
I
difference
don't
is
care because I believe in
that-
free speech.
the example I said earlier of someone saying I'd heard hard out with hatred.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between what I said and that is I did not do it towards with hatred. I did it with joking
it was
matter.
a joke. It's intent. Then how can you tell what the intent was?
How can you tell what the intent to anything is? Yet
I mean, I guess you're right. It's all interpretation.
Then
Exactly.
the
That's to his
entire
point.
system of law is fundamentally flawed. Ergo, we should default to the position that uses the least amount of legal influence, aka free speech. Dude, I'm sorry, but it's L after L after L. This argument doesn't make sense.
no, it's because you guys are trying to advocate that you
I'm not
should.
advocating
Not
for
should.
You are
anybody.
Not
advocating.
should. Not should.
How are we? Okay, how are we
Could.
advocating? How? Explain. Just because you can murder somebody, right, doesn't mean you should murder somebody.
And we're not even.
Wait, so you're saying you could murder someone
my
without
God.
any consequence?
Anyone can
Oh,
murder
no.
somebody.
Without consequence.
No,
Because that's what you guys are saying. They
I'm
guys,
not- Look,
That you
I'm
can
not.
say the N-word without any consequences.
No,
That is what
no,
you're saying.
no.
What are you saying? Without consequence. You think
Okay.
that people should.
Sonny,
Sonny,
please.
What?
look.
Calling
Okay, let me.
someone the N-word is not murder. Okay?
It isn't not.
It's,
But that's an example you just used, so I'm
Okay,
using
let me
it.
explain the example. Just because you can murder somebody doesn't mean you should, right? Anyone can murder anybody, right? If I go get a gun, I can murder anyone in my house, right? I would never do such a thing, but I can. Once I have that gun. It doesn't mean I should, and it doesn't mean I'll be rid of legal consequences.
and you shouldn't be.
Yes.
But we're on the topic of legal consequences, so we're talking about, since you brought up murder, if you murder someone, yes, you can, but there'll be legal actions.
Okay.
It's okay, it's
Why shouldn't there be a certain consequence done to the people who said a derogatory language such as the N-word to black guy with hatred? With 10 fingers.
because there's an ever morphing how do I put this? It's gonna be ever morphing, right? The basis of speech. Yesterday the N word will be offensive. The next day, using what Chao said, the F word, will be also offensive.
It already
And then
is.
after that, well, it already is. I feel like a couple years ago it wasn't, but
Yeah,
that's just the point. Culture always evolves.
Language always evolves.
Language evolves,
But
and
the
words.
law must stay as close to how it was as possible so that we know that the laws actually are worth our time. Like, it does not matter how far you go back. Murder will always be illegal because it's fucking murder. Because you're taking someone else's life, and therefore you are infringing on their right to life. That's innate. But the right to free speech is one of the cornerstones of the Western world. I'm actually kind of surprised that you don't understand that more. That these hate speech laws are infringing on free speech. Not, like...
I never said they didn't infringe on it. I just said that we shouldn't be, like, legally, you know what? I'll take that out of books. We shouldn't be legal consequence for it.
Yeah.
But to say that we can't give a response that's, like, physical is bad.
Okay.
No.
So that is vigilante justice. There's a lot of reasons which I feel like the BLM, anti-defund the police stance that you've taken would understand why vigilante justice is bad. The reason why the state has
There's a huge difference between the BLM riots and you punching a guy because they said the N-word to you, or another...
It's actually more similar than you think. Because when you go and protest for BLM, you make the presumption that because cops are, they are, they're bad towards black people, you could take the law into your own hands. You could riot up the city, loot a couple stores, in some cases murder people, and that happened, by the way, in Seattle. It did. And you're saying, because if someone says to a black person, you are an N-word, you can punch them in the face. It's the exact same concept.
No, it's not. Because the difference is, one is directly to you, and the one is indirectly to you.
No, you're taking the law.
It doesn't matter.
Yes, it does matter, because that's the one aspect you try and dance away from, is the one is indirectly affecting you, and the one is directly affecting you.
Excuse me. People that are doing the BLM, riots, and some of them are peaceful protests, I'll admit, and I think everyone should admit that.
Yeah.
The people that are doing the riots, a lot of them are black people, and they're rioting.
Actually, most of them are white people, actually.
Majority. Some of them are. I'm not saying that
you just said the majority is black. No, it's white people, so there's a difference.
I'll go back into the film, and I'll replay it, because obviously you misheard me. I did not say majority are black people. I said some of them are black people, and they're rioting because they feel like cops are affecting their lives in a negative way. They're taking the law into their own hands. You're saying that if I call a black person as a white man the N-word in a hateful or derogatory way, that black person has the right to punch me. So now, that black person that just punched me, and the black people that are rioting in the streets, are taking the law into their own hands. Do you see the connection?
No, I do not.
So the black people that are rioting are taking the law into their own hands because they are rioting. They are going into stores looting and in some cases murdering. The person is taking the law into their own hands, which I call the N-word.
That's not really the law in their own hands, though.
It
Writing
is,
is
though.
not the law of their own
Okay.
hands.
The person taking the law into
They
their own
punched
hands
me
is the person
because they wanted justice, right?
No,
They
but
wanted-
how are the writers taking the law into their own hands?
because they are pursuing justice.
How are they pursuing justice towards
Because they believe that the
Sonny.
cops.
pursuing justice
Hold on,
would
I wanna
try to get back at back at the businesses,
What
not
do you
the
think they're
small
doing?
businesses. How are they getting at the cops?
Okay,
Because
Alright,
they're committing crimes without police supervision, right? They're facing zero consequences.
hold on.
That's how
I want to say something about this. Okay, Sonny, their entire thing is justice. Their entire ideology, their entire identity is based around social justice. That's why
We can all agree that the BLM ideals and what the riots are completely different.
different from what?
We can all agree. Because people even said themselves they agree
Different
with the
from what?
BLM, but not the rioting.
Okay,
They
but
are
I'm
two
not
separate
saying that.
things.
Look, I actually made this distinction. I don't know if you heard. I said a lot of the protests were peaceful. I made the
Right.
distinction.
The protests were peaceful.
But
the
now you're
riots were
trying
not.
to put them back together
No,
by
I'm
saying
not.
that I'm not saying you.
They're
I'm
both-
saying
I'm saying that the riots. I'm actually distinguishing the two. The
now
riots.
that's you. But I'm talking to Chao right now since he brought up that point. I am counteracting that point.
I feel like Chao was building on my point, but I guess I could.
Yeah. Okay. Obviously, the most if not all of the protests were peaceful. That's why they were identified as the peaceful protests. But here's the thing: we're not talking about the peaceful protests, and the reason why we're not talking about them is because the protests were not vigilantes. The rioters were. The rioters said that the police are corrupt and they are incapable, not even just unwilling, but incapable of acting out the justice of America because, you know, they are discriminating against black people, and that is racist, and that is deeply institutionally racist, and that is not justice. They are justice. They call themselves justice. That's why this whole thing is happening. The reason why the entire BLM riots, and arguably the protests to an extent, were even happening at all was because they felt like they were the only people who could fight for justice while everyone else just sat on the sidelines and watched. They were absolutely vigilantes. That was their main thing. And the reason why vigilante justice isn't okay is because vigilantes can't be held accountable. It all loops back together. Police, as you know, police wear body cams. They have systems in place so that they can be held accountable if police officers do something against justice, against the law, against what we've established to be justice. But
then do you want body cams on all civilians? So they can...
What?
Because then...
What?
Do you
Because
not
you
want
bring
body
up-
cams on police then? What's your point here?
I'm just saying...
Why would you
take
bring up
it-
that point? That's a weird point to me. Do you not want body cams on police?
Just saying, because he's saying, oh, we can take accountability for the police. Counteract that point.
It's
Boom.
because the police are public servants, man.
Their
There's a
job
difference.
is to restore law and order. They get paid to do it. It's their job. It's not the citizen's job to restore law and order. That's what the police are for. The police have final responsibility.
I mean, I would bring up an old podcast, but footage got corrupted, so I can't even
Look,
bring up.
I have all the files on backup if you really need them. But
No,
here's
you
the
don't. You're not that one. Not
I-
the one on police.
What?
Not the one that got corrupted.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, obviously we don't have that one because my fucking computer crashed. But here's the thing, right? At the end of the day, if you want to make an argument that the police are either incapable or generally unwilling to tackle such small issues as someone being called the N-word in a hateful way, and that the only people who are capable of doing so in that sort of personal a one-to-one style is the person being, offended, that is an anti-police message. At least partially. You do not believe that the police should have the monopoly on violence that they currently do. That's what the leftists are saying.
But to say that the N-word in any derogatory, especially the N-word, that's like the biggest.
Why is the N-word the only example you've been using? There are a lot.
Because can you say if you can say that, say it right now, say the N-word right now. Say that if you think you have the right, say it right now. I'm not gonna
say it because it doesn't apply to me.
Exactly, because you can't, because if you have the right, if you have the freedom of speech, then say it.
Well, if you have the freedom, just because I can do something doesn't mean I should. No, let's build on something else. Let's move on to Hassan Piker, because this is obviously a good segue. What? If you really let me explain. If you really believe that a black person should be able to punch a white guy for calling him the N-word, which is fine, that's your opinion, and you could have opinions, and and because you could have opinions, I can't just punch you in the face, right? That's how freedom of speech works.
It's not an opinion. It's not an opinion.
It is an opinion.
No. It's not an opinion. The word is not an opinion.
That's the only alternative.
That then-word is a very harsh word.
No, I'm not saying
that is a fact. That is a fact. That's not an opinion. That is a fact.
Okay, but I'm not saying that. I'm saying your opinion that a black man can punch a white man for calling him the N-word, that is your opinion. And by the way, because we live in the United States and we can have opinions, I don't have the right to punch you in the face because I disagree with you. Cool. Now we've established that.
Speech.
Now,
the difference is that the difference is
I'm building on. We'll never agree on this. That's fine. I'm building onto Hassan Piker. Hassan Piker. He made recent news for controversy around the use of cracker. And by the way, I don't care if I say that because and because that word is offensive and derogatory towards white people. And because you are brown, Sonny, if you say cracker towards me, do you think I have the right to punch you in the face? Please. How does that work? It is the same as the N-word towards white people, right?
Okay, it's a little bit less severe because
it's fine.
It's a little.
But it's
less
the same
severe,
concept.
But it's still a slur.
But do you think I have the right to punch you in the face if you say that to me? Really?
Alright, KYKA, do you think that as someone who just cuts someone is the same as if someone stabs someone to death should get the same amount of jail time?
Well, obviously not. Assault. That's why a judge can give different sentencing, right?
Yes, it is.
So each thing demands its own kind of
it's a racial
response.
Slur. If your basis is because it's a racial slur, and you're saying it towards a group that feels antagonized by it, that's your whole concept. That person has the right to punch them, right?
I feel like it has its own kind of tier list because the reason why I use the N-word is because it's the highest amount.
Literally,
as we use murder, it is one of the highest amounts against the law.
Okay, Sonny, this is the arguments that we go against leftists with. And the reason why we use these arguments is because leftists are inherently against the concept of free speech when it's not politically convenient for them.
Just because you have one view that is left does not make you all left.
I never said that. Okay, that I never said that.
But you're basically saying that, we fight leftists on this. Why are you having this ideal?
Yes.
That's not what you said.
Well, actually, that is partially what I'm saying. And the reason why I'm saying it is because you do not like... you do not respect free speech just like the leftists do, but for a totally different reason. It's not the same. I'm not saying you're leftist. I'm not saying you were even partially leftist or that this view is a uniquely leftist thing. But I'm saying the reason why we fight leftists on this is because it's fucking stupid for multiple reasons. And we're trying to explain this to you, right? That in order for a country to function... there are a certain amount of human rights that must be critically respected because they're human rights, because they're integral to us and because we're born with them. One of them is freedom of speech, freedom of thought, and freedom to voice that thought. That is a fundamental and absolutely critical human right that everyone must have in order for society to function and in order for all the other rights to be respected as well. Look, we could go down the minutia of all of this over and over and over again. We probably already have. This was supposed to be a small topic, but it's probably going to be the majority of the video. But here's the thing, okay? I'm trying to make this, shorter so we can move on. But ultimately, okay, if you do not believe that free speech is entirely encompassing, and that certain words cannot be said because they are offensive and because they are slurs and because they have quote-unquote serious potential to hurt people, end quote, then why are you here? This is a podcast where basically the entire thing that we do is we say things that the establishment doesn't want us to be able to say. That's
the point of the podcast is to display our opinions on this state of the government and what it happens. It is not because we are all right-wing. It's not because we all have the same point of views. It's to display our opinions and our views on certain topics. It is not because we are all have the same opinion or we all be the same.
When did I say that we were all supposed to be the same opinion?
You're demonstrating that because I have this view, why am I on this podcast? Why should I be on the podcast if I do not agree with the freedom of speech?
Right.
Why?
But the reason why I say that specifically, it's not just any normal view. Freedom of speech is directly integral to the podcast's functioning and success, is that if you are on this podcast, you believe that you should be allowed to speak right now. But
why do we bleep words? Why do we bleep words on YouTube?
Great question, actually.
Why?
I've been asking this for
YouTube. That's why we bleep.
Because YouTube is a demonstrably authoritarian body.
So then why are we on YouTube? If it's against freedom of speech, why are we on YouTube?
That's the best way for us to grow.
Exactly. For the best way of survival, we shouldn't say the N-word. I've just said my point of view.
I swear to God, I'm literally about to fucking say the N-word if you do not stop. Just
say it. Say it.
Oh, don't say the N-word.
You think I'm scared?
Don't say it.
You think this shit will keep me up at night? If I say the forbidden word, if I dare say Voldemort's name, I'm this close. Don't push me.
Don't say it, please. Okay, look. Okay, let's just agree to disagree.
It's a word, my guy. It's not that deep.
It is a word.
See, everyone has their own value of things. As one thing they value something.
Why can't we just agree to disagree? It's literally that simple.
Because it's too integral.
I understand.
See, I say we fuck the rest of it, and just talk about this. Because, this is something. The rest is just the scrape of the bucket, to be honest.
Well, I mean, these are all very important topics that we had literally prepared for the video. But I actually do agree that if we wanted to continue this debate, that would be fine. If it weren't for the fact that, on some level, we're not really going anywhere with it. I mean, we're going somewhere, but it's slow.
How long are we recording? How long have we been recording?
We've been recording for an hour and 15 minutes.
Oh, for fuck's sakes, I have a whole lot to do.
And we haven't even ended with the first topic. Oh, sorry, second topic. With Lindsay Ellis.
We should just went to fucking Kazakhstan right after fucking Fit 6.
You worry about leaving a better planet for our kids. How about leaving better kids for our planet? Entire generation offended at everything, getting mad that a human thinks all lives matter. We don't need black or white or left or right. What we need is common sense. We need balance. We're all in the same boat. Why you trying to make holes? If they sink, we sink. This is madness.